This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Glatstein addressing us. We had this script of having Rabbi Glatstein addressing us roughly 2.5 years ago, when Rabbi Glatstein came to South Africa. It was on the Erev Shabbos he spoke to us, Parsha's Matzis Masei. Rabbi Glatstein is a world-famous Rav Moreh Asra, even though he is in a smallish kehillah called Kehillas Avos Yisrael, but his Torah spreads all over the world, and it's really a tremendous chus that we have as part of our program this year, our different program, because of the circumstances that we can, because everybody around the world is in the same matzav, that we can have Rabbi Glatstein joining us all the way from his hometown, able to give us the chizuk. And really, I want to also take this opportunity to thank our Mashgiach, Rabbi Weiner, for all of his efforts in helping to make sure that this year that we can carry on having our extra limud during our Teshuva, not just the night story, but that much more than that. And to thank also Rabbi Blumenau for all of his help that he's helped since the beginning of our school year, which is coming towards the end of already. But really a tremendous debt of our consultation to both of you, to making sure that the MBM program has worked so successfully. And without any further ado, I ask Rabbi Glatstein to please address us.
Okay, thank you so much, Rabbi Salzer, for...
Rabbi Glatstein, you're on mute too.
Oh, hi. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Rabbi Salzer, for the warm introduction. It's good to see Yeshiva again, the Manal again, and it was really quite an honor to be able to be together with the boys a few years ago, and look forward to perhaps again one day being able to join you personally. But when the Rebbeinu Shalom said, "Ein lo ilah HaKadosh Baruch Hu la dalet amos shel halacha," maybe part of that is you could stay in your dalet amos and yet share halacha to those who are interested. So we know we're holding in the most important days of the year now, the Aseret Yimei Teshuva, and in all probability you would imagine that the Satan and the Yetzer Hara is exerting as much energy and effort as possible to make sure that we don't take advantage of these days. Because as we know, even the Mishnah Berurah brings down that each one of these days, one could rectify the corresponding day of the previous year, and some even say of one's entire life. In other words, today, for me, it's Monday, I think. Yeah, today, right now for me it's Monday. For you guys out there in South Africa, it's already Yom Shlishi. But wherever you're holding, I wonder if I, by giving this share, could help out my Tuesdays, and you, by listening to something in America, could rectify retroactively Mondays. I'll leave that to the bigger Lamdanim. But anyway, these days are invested with great energy and great power, and they're the most important days of the year. And therefore, what a wonderful program this is, to be able to share Torah together at this momentous time. The month of Tishrei. We're now in the month of Tishrei. We know that every Hebrew letter has a numerical value. It's called gematria. We know Aleph is the equivalent of 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3, and so on and so forth. Yud is 10, Chaf is 20, Lamed is 30, Kuf is 100. Let's take the word Tishrei for a moment. The Taf is 400, the Shin is 300, the Reish is 200, and the Yud is 10, 910. But then there's another aspect of gematria, and that is, amazingly, we know everything in Torah is significant. There is no detail of Torah that we could say, I don't know, it's just one of those things, maybe it's not really that important. We know every small detail of Torah is laden with great meaning, including the kudais, including the vocalizations, the dots. So there's actually an idea that every nekuda has a gematria. So for example, a chirik, which is 1 dot, is a yud, equals 10. And a tseirei, which is 2 dots, or a shva, which is 2 dots, is 2 yuds, is 20. And a segol is 30. And a patach is a horizontal vav, is 6. And a kamatz, when I was a kid, before Art Scroll took over all the Sidurim, they used to have Sidurim with a kamatz, with a horizontal line, and then under the line was a circle. Nowadays, they homogenize everything, so you have a horizontal line and a vertical line. But that's not really what a kamatz looks like. A kamatz is a horizontal line with a dot. So a kamatz equals 16. There's a horizontal line and a dot and a yud, a vav and a yud. Okay. So if we were to take the total tally, the total gematria of the word Tishrei, Taf, Shin, Reish, Yud, so the letters equal 9, 10, and then you have a chirik under the Taf is 10, and you have a shva under the Shin, 2 dots is 20, and you have a tseirei under the Reish is another 20, a total of 960. Now what is the significance of 960? It's very interesting. If, let's say, I was in South Africa 2.5 years ago. I know not everybody eats cholent, but there are people who do eat cholent in South Africa. In America, you have to eat cholent on Shabbos. If you don't eat cholent, it's like sacrilegious. It's like they're going to ask you, I don't know, are you Jewish or not? But not every country in the world do. But let's take the example of cholent. So the story goes, in the big yeshivas, they have this huge pot of cholent. It's a tremendous pot. Now, I'm not recommending doing this, but what would happen if a mouse falls in the cholent? That's right, a mouse. Can you eat the cholent? So usually there's a rule in kashrus that if the kosher item is 60 times bigger than the treif item, it's batal b'shishim. However, there's another rule that if it's a beria, if it's an entity, if it's an entire being, then a beria is not batal, according to Talmud Bavli, afilu be'elef loy batal. Even in 1,000, if you have an entire entity, it's not batal. Even if a small insect falls into a cholent, if it falls in whole, a beria is not batal. It is not nullified. However, the opinion of the Yerushalmi is that a beria, an entity, is batal in tat kas, in 960. If you have 960 more of the volume of something which is permitted than the item which is forbidden, so then the forbidden item becomes batal. A beria is batal betat kas, taf kuf samach, 960. Well, putting aside the analogy of the cholent and the mouse, let's think about ourselves for a moment. We are a beria. We are an entire entity. And at least according to the Yerushalmi, there would be a way for us to purify ourselves. And that is in a mikvah. We know there's a concept that if somebody immerses in a mikvah, the mikvah could render somebody pure from certain impurities. And in fact, the Bnei Yissaschar writes, interestingly, does anybody know how many lug are in a mikvah? Well, there are 40... Good. There are 40 sa in a mikvah. There are 40 sa in a mikvah. Now, how many lug are in a sa? There are 4 lug in a kav and 6 kav in a sa. So how many lug in a mikvah? 40 times 24. Which means...
Like 900 and something?
Exactly. Now, I don't know who's talking, but you're on the ball. 960. There are 960 lug in a mikvah. What's the significance of 960 lug in the mikvah? The answer is, we are a beria. We are an entire, a complete entity. We are, by the way, let me just go back. When I was in 7th grade, I know you guys, 7th grade is already high school. I don't know, am I getting that right? But in America, 7th grade, you're still in elementary school. You're still you're a baby. In America, it takes a very long time to mature. Because we have, all these fruity pebbles and frosted flakes and all this stuff, it takes us longer to mature in America. So you guys, you're already mature in 7th grade, but we're little kids in 7th grade. But I do remember, when I was about 11, 12 years old, we had a Rabbi, he taught us the following. It's called Blaksa 6463. What am I talking about? Blaksa 6463. It's a formula to remember Shiurim. The Beis is Beya, the Lamed is Lug, the Kuf is Kav, the Samach is Sa, and the aleph is efa. Black sa, 6463. There's 6 beya in a lug, 4 lug in a kav, 6 kav in a sa, 3 sa in an efa. Black sa, 6463. And I tell you, I remember this until this day, but that's how I figured out that there are 24 lug in a sa. Because there are 4 lug in a kav and 6 kav in a sa. Okay, putting that aside, let's keep things clear. There are 960 lug in a mikvah. What's the significance of that? Is that if little old me goes into a mikvah, I can render myself pure, I could purify myself in 960 lug. After all, the Yerushalmi tells us that a beria is batel in 960. An entire entity could become nullified in 960. So even if, let's say, I've done things that I'm not proud of this year, going into a mikvah, it accomplishes some degree of purity. Now, you still don't think you could jump into a mikvah and you're good to go, all of a sudden you're clean. You still have to do tshuva, but it sort of inspires the heart to be motivated to do tshuva. Be it as it may, a beria is batal in 960. Someone who immerses in a mikvah is tahar in 960. So friends, I ask you, the month of Tishrei is equal to 960. It's Gematria 960. How many hours are there from the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippurim? 40 days of tshuva. How many hours in these 40 days? So, we have 40 days. 40 times 24, amazingly, is 960. That teaches us, says Bnei Yissaschar, that this time of the year, these 40 days are like a mikvah, they're like a ritual bath, where as we travel through these days, whether you're prepared or not, whether you're ready or not, it's like if somebody throws someone into a mikvah, they become pure, whether they like it or not. So as you travel through these 40 days, whether you're focused or you're not focused, whether you're ready or you're not ready, nobody comes out and emerges from these 40 days the same way as when they came in. So that's an important idea to understand, that the Rebbeinu Shalom is, so to speak, our mikvah. Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. Hashem is our mikvah, and the Rebbeinu Shalom, with these 40 days, 24 hours a day, 960 hours, the Rebbeinu Shalom is purifying us during this time of the year. So once we're on the analogy, once we're speaking about the subject of a mikvah, the great Tana Rabbi Akiva, in the end of Masechta Yuma, he said the famous words, Ashreichem Yisrael. Fortunate are the Jewish people. He says, Lifnei mi atem metaharim. Before whom are you purifying yourselves? Umi metaher eschem. And who purifies you? Avichem shabashamayim. It's your Father in heaven. And Rabbi Akiva summons 2 psukim. Rabbi Akiva says, Shenemar, V'zarakti aleichem mayim tahirim utahartem. I will sprinkle you with the purifying waters and you will become pure. V'oimer, and it says, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. The Rebbeinu Shalom is the mikveh of Klal Yisrael. It's very interesting that Rabbi Akiva cites 2 psukim. Pasuk number 1 is V'zarakti aleichem mayim tahirim. I'm going to sprinkle you with the purifying waters. And pasuk number 2 is Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. Why does Rabbi Akiva cite 2 psukim? Why does he cite any psukim? Just say the Rebbeinu Shalom is our mikvah. Why is Rabbi Akiva bringing up these 2 psukim? So Rav Pam was the legendary Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Tarvadas, and actually Rav Pam was a Talmud. I learned in Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim, and I learned by the great Rosh Yeshiva Rav Henach Leibowitz Zechazag Levracha, whose father was the founder of the Yeshiva Rav David Leibowitz, and Rav David Leibowitz was also the Rebbe of Rav Pam. And Rav Pam would cite the son of Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector. In Europe, about 100 years ago, if you would go today, if you go to most homes, in America they have a picture of Rav Moshe. Some people have a picture of Rabbi Aaron Kotler. Some people have a picture, chveis, of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Some people have Rabbi Vadia Yosef. Some people have... I have both, by the way. I keep this picture behind me, Reb Moshe and Reb Avadia. This way, nobody knows who I am. Am I Ashkenazi? Am I Sephardi? I'm not telling you. You'll have to figure it out on your own. No, I'm Ashkenazi, but I happen to enjoy Reb Avadia's farm very much. So I saw a picture of Reb Moshe and Reb Avadia. I didn't even know they met, so I had to get it, and I put it behind me. This way, everybody likes it. Okay. But back in the day in Europe, in every Jewish home, there was a picture of Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, the Kovner Rav. And he had a son, Rav Tzvi Hersh Spector, and he says a magnificent pshat in this Mishnah, why Rabbi Kiva brings two psukim. He says there are two kinds of purification. One kind of purification is the purification of a mikvah. And the purification of the mikvah, let's say when I used to be very claustrophobic, I didn't like to stick my head under the water. So let's say you want to say, you know what, I don't like sticking my head under the water. I'm going to go into the mikvah 90% and I'll be 90% tahar. What percent tahar are you if you keep your head above the water? 0. It's all or nothing. And what if you stick your hand up, your Rebbe has a question and you want to answer it while you're in the mikvah, and your hand is out of the water? You're 0% tahar. And what if your little finger is sticking up a little bit? You're 0% tahar. What if one hair on your head is out of the water? It accomplishes nothing. Going to the mikvah is all or nothing. Either you're in or you're out. But then there's another kind of purification, and that is the purification of the hazav, the waters of the paraduma. And when the kohen sprinkles on you the waters of the paraduma, if that water touches the tip of your finger, even one drop, you become tahar. So there are two kinds of purification. There's v'zarakti aleichem mayim tahir mutahartem, and then there's number 2, there's going to the mikvah. Going to the mikvah, it's all or nothing. Either you're totally in or you're totally out. But then there's the purifying waters. If you merely come into contact with the purifying waters, you're pure. Says the son of Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, there are two kinds of tshuvas. One kind of tshuva is you completely change your life forever. Last year, I wasted so much time. Last year when I came home from Yeshiva, I had 3 hours, I had 4 hours. I just wasted my time. I ate, and then I played games, and then I was mevatel Torah. And you know what? Sometimes I even fought with my brothers and sisters. And you know what? Sometimes when my parents asked me to do something, I didn't listen. And you know what? Sometimes, instead of coming 5 minutes early to every davening, sometimes I came 2 minutes late to davening. And I know I'm not supposed to do that, because once you come late to davening, then you're behind the 8 ball and you're catching up, and you might not start Shemona Esrei with the tzibur, and for sure, according to the Mishnah Berurah, you have to start Shemona Esrei with the tzibur, but certainly l'chadchila. And I had a lot of things that last year that I'm not so proud of. And maybe other things. This year, I'm a changed person. I'm going to do a complete tshuva. This year, when I come home from yeshiva, I'm going to spend every moment learning. And I'm never going to fight with my brothers and sisters again. And I'm going to come on time to every single davening, and everything my parents ask me, I'm going to cooperate with great derech haretz. I'm a different person this year. You can't recognize me. That is certainly the goal. And that kind of tshuva is a tshuva shalema, a complete tshuva. That kind of tshuva is comparable to dunking in the mikvah. Either you're completely in or you're completely out. But the thing is, I think we all know that even though that's a very noble goal, it's not always so realistic. It might work for Rosh Hashanah. It might work for Tzom Gedalia. Maybe even I could keep up until Yom Kippur. But the likelihood of me making use of every moment of my spare time and coming on time to every davening and not fighting with my brothers and sisters and listening to everything my parents ask, the Yetzer Hara is, he's also a formidable opponent, and the likelihood of me beating him in every area in life that I have challenges, I might have an easier time during the Aseres Yemei Teshuva, but the likelihood of me going the whole year that way, look, between me and you, it ain't happening, right? It's not really that likely. So then what? If tshuva is like going to the mikvah and it's all or nothing, so I guess it's nothing, because I'm not going to completely change myself. I'm not going to spend every minute that I'm home from yeshiva learning and come. It's too much. It's too hard. So the Mishnah and Rabbi Akiva tells you, and tells me, and tells all of Klal Yisrael, that if tshuva that is comparable to a mikvah is not really that likely, there is another kind of tshuva, and that is the tshuva that is comparable to the purifying waters. And if you merely come into contact with this kind of tshuva, and you just do a little bit, that is also tshuva. So, you know what? Maybe this year when I come home from yeshiva, I won't be able to use every moment properly. But I'm going to accept upon myself this year that on Sundays, I'm going to learn an extra 20 minutes. Am I a different person? I'm not a totally different person. I'm still not using every single night, maybe the way Rav Moshe Feinstein would. I'm not even using Sunday night that way. But I'm making a significant change in Sunday night. I'm going to do something small, where now I say, Ribbonu Shel Olam, I recognize the value of time. And one day I'm going to use all my time properly. Every night properly. Every Sunday night properly. But right now I'm working toward doing a complete tshuva. So for this year, for Tafshin Pei Aleph, I am going to make sure that on Sundays I'm going to learn an extra 20 minutes. I may not be completely transforming myself, I may not be revolutionizing my year, but a tshuva, some level of tshuva I'm doing, something I'm doing. I may not be doing tshuva comparable to a mikvah, but I will be doing tshuva comparable to the mayim hataharim. You know, last year I really wasn't so careful with every word I said. Sometimes I said things about my friends, maybe even a little bit derogatory. It might have been lashon hara. And come to think of it, I may have been doing that every single day by recess. So certainly the goal is not to speak badly about other people ever. But to stand on Rosh Hashanah or on some Gedar in the beginning of the year and say, okay, Ribbonu Shel Olam, this year I'm never going to say a word of lashon hara. We should try to do that. But realistically, maybe instead of trying to do the all or nothing tshuva, where when a few days pass by and we realize, we succumbed or maybe we fell short, and we just throw in the towel, oh, so I guess tshuva is not for me. Let's try to do a tshuva like the mayim hataharim, a small tshuva. This year, on Shabbos, by Shabbos lunch, I'm going to say over one halacha from the Chafetz Chaim about Hilchos Lashon Hara, and I'm going to be careful that at the lunch table on Shabbos, I'm not going to speak Lashon Hara. Am I transforming myself? Am I transforming the way I speak? Not yet. We still have a long way to go. But just because we have a long way to go, that doesn't mean we can't start. Doesn't mean we can't do something significant, substantial, and do a tshuva that's analogous, that's similar to coming in contact with the mayim hataharim. I want to share with you another amazing gematria. We all know the famous Gemara in Masechta Yuma. Reb Levi said, Gedola tshuva shemagas ad kisei hakavod. Tshuva is great. It reaches all the way up to the throne of glory. You ever hear that? Tshuva, you should know, a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, I was walking Matzoi Shabbos, and I looked up at the moon, and I saw something very strange. There was a red star right next to the moon. So I asked my wife, well, what's going on here? Is that a plane? Is that what is that? Is that fireworks? So we didn't know. So we looked it up. It was Mars. For a few nights in America, Mars and the moon were right next to each other. Now I want to ask you a question. How long would it take you to get to the moon? How long would it take you to get to Mars? It would take a very, very long time. It would take years. To get to Mars, it could take years. To get to the Kisei HaKavod, that is a journey. If you look in the words of Chazal, they're 500 years before each of the 7 levels of the heavens. It takes thousands of years to get to the Kisei HaKavod. And yet, tshuva is great. It gets you, what scientists have not been able to reach and achieve through rocket ships, tshuva could get to the Kisei HaKavod. The numerical value of tshuva is 713. Don't say, the rabbi said 613. No, I know. There's 613 mitzvahs. Tshuva is 713. Rav Shamshin Me'ashtapoli was one of the great Mikubalim of the 17th century. He was nifter in 1648. He uncovers an amazing type of gematria. In Parshas Devarim it says that Moshe explained the Torah Ba'er Heitev very well. And Rashi says, what does it mean very well? Into 70 languages. How does Rashi know? Where does Rashi see in the pasuk that Moshe translated the Torah into 70 languages? So one of the Mefarshim on Rashi, the Rabbi Mizrahi, he says, if you take the word Heitev, Hey is 5, and you add Hey Yud, that's another 15. And then you add Hey Yud Tes, that's 24. And then you add Hey Yud Tes Vez, that's 26. 5, 15, 24, 26 is 70. Rashi knew that Moshe translated the Torah into 70 languages because there's a system of gematria where you take the first letter, and then the first 2 letters, and then the first 3 letters, and then the first 4 letters. That's a system of gematria. So says Rav Shamshin Me'ashtapoli, take the word Kisei HaKavod. Kaf is 20. Kaf Samach is 80. Kaf Samach Aleph is 81. Kaf Samach Aleph Hey is 86. Kaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf is 106. Kaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vez is 108. Kaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vez Vav 114. Kaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vav Vez Vav Dalid 118. Add up 20 plus 80 plus 81 plus 86 plus 106 plus 108 plus 114 plus 118 is gematria tshuva 713. Okay, I guess you have to be a big makubal to figure that out, but that's what he says. Tshuva is the numerical value of Kisei HaKavod, the chaf plus the chaf samach plus the chaf samach aleph plus the chaf samach aleph Hey, plus a Chav Samach Aleph Hey Chav, plus a Chav Samach Aleph, and so on and so forth. So I ask you, why would tshuva be gematria Kisei HaKavod if you only through this formula of Kisei HaKavod? Why do we have to use this formula of Kisei HaKavod to have the numerical value of tshuva? So I once saw in a sefer, Mishnas Yosef, it's teaching us this lesson. Don't think you're getting to the Kisei HaKavod overnight. Don't think I'm already in Mesifta Shaarei Torah, right? That's the name of it. So I'm already in the most chosh of Mesifta in the whole Africa, in the whole continent. And already tomorrow, next year, I'm going to be the Gadol Hadar, Emirtz Hashem. Don't think you're going to change completely overnight. To get to the Kisei HaKavod, you only get there step by step by step. This year, you're going to work on Sunday night. Next year, you're going to work on Monday night. The following year, maybe you'll add 2 nights. And then while you're doing that, this year, you'll be careful about what you speak about Shabbos afternoon. And maybe next month, you'll start listening carefully to the way your parents speak to you and being compliant with Derech Eretz. The only way to reach the Kisei HaKavod is small steps. Baby steps, little by little by little. You gotta fool the Satan. Because what the Satan wants you to do is the Satan wants you to say, this year I'm going to be a perfect tzaddik. And then tomorrow, the first time you make a mistake, the Satan said, you see, you're not a perfect tzaddik, so you might as well don't even try. Don't even try to become a Talmid Chacham. Don't even try to become a tzaddik. The great Limud, says Rav Shamshin Me'ashtapoli, of Gedola Tshuva Shemagasa Kisei HaKavod is the way that we get to the Kisei HaKavod is first the Chaf, and then the Chaf Samach, and the Chaf Samach Aleph, little by little by little by little, and ultimately, if we take step after step after step, we will have the Siyata D'Shmaya to reach the Kisei HaKavod. You know, the story goes that when the Chafetz Chaim heard about a new invention, he was very excited. Chafetz Chaim was very excited when he learned about the invention of the elevator. And that is because the Chafetz Chaim felt that the elevator was the perfect mashal to avodas Hashem. Because we know there's a great principle that the Rebbeinu Shem, he just asks of us, open up for me a little hole, a little opening like the point of a needle. And if we open up our hearts and we make a small improvement and a small changes, the Rebbeinu Shem promises us He's going to open up that hole big enough for big trucks to go through, for big wagons to go through. Chafetz Chaim saw in the elevator a perfect analogy of Avodas Hashem. All you need to do is a little bit. Just press the button. Just step aboard. And if you step aboard, the Rebbeinu Shem will carry you the rest of the way up. You know, sometimes you look at Shas, it looks so big, it looks so vast. You look at big tzaddikim, it looks like it's such a difficult thing to serve Hashem properly. It is. It requires a lot. Shas is very vast. But the thing is, you don't really have to do all the effort. You just have to start. You just have to open up a little bit. You just have to make small changes. Think of it like an elevator. Just press the button, step aboard, and the Rebbeinu Shem will carry us the rest of the way there. So I like to think that this is one of the messages of the shofar. The shofar, it has this little hole on the bottom. And the Baal Tokea blows this little hole. And that's what we have to do on our end. We just have to open up a little bit. We just have to, maybe if we were not having as much success in learning as we hoped for, we just have to try a little bit more. Maybe put in a little extra time. Maybe come a little bit earlier. Maybe try a little bit harder. Don't think, you have to sweat like some stories that they said of Gedolim in Europe, that they stayed up all night, they put their feet in ice maybe one day. But right now, all the Rebbeinu Shem asks of us is just kechudai shamachat, just a little bit. That's represented by the small opening of the shofar. That's min hameitzar karasi ka. But if we're able to open up just a little bit, then the top of the shofar is open wide. That represents that min hashamayim, the Rebbeinu Shem is awaiting to open up new vistas for us, new opportunities for us, new psachim for us. If I could just conclude, Rav Meir Shapiro, the Lubliner Rav, the great Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Chachmei Lublin, the founder of the Daf Hayomi, he was once invited to speak in a shul. So he turns to one of his chaverim there. He said, well, what should I speak about? He said, what do you mean? We know when a Jew goes into shul, he says, Ma toivu oyalecha Yaakov. So speak about the pasuk, Ma toivu oyalecha Yaakov. So the Rav Meir Shapiro said, great idea. We know Rashi says on those words, Ma toivu oyalecha Yaakov, that Bilam saw the modesty of the Jewish homes. Ra'a she'ein peschehem mechuvanim. He saw the doorways of the Jews were not right opposite each other. This way, one house cannot peek and peer into what's doing in the other house, and everybody had their modesty and privacy. But Rav Meir Shapiro said, al pi drush, he said homiletically, that he's so jealous of the Jewish people. He saw that our doorways are not aligned. You know which doorways he was talking about? The doorway of a Jew and the doorway of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because Rebbeinu Shem says, I'm ready to open up the world to you. I'm ready to open up big doorways for you. Even if your doorway is opened up only ever so slightly. Bilam said that's not fair. Why does Rebbeinu Shem give a Yid so much siyata d'shmaya, so much heavenly assistance, that if we open up our hearts just a little bit, the Rebbeinu Shem is going to open up the world for us. Ra she'ein pischehen mechuvanos. Bilam saw the love Hashem has for us, that even if we just do a little bit, the Rebbeinu Shem is going to bench us with tremendous siyata d'shmaya and open up the world for us. So certainly, it's the beginning of the year, and we definitely have big hopes and big dreams of making major changes this year, and we have big aspirations, and we all should. But on the other hand, we also have to have a degree of realism and practicality, that although we may be dreaming big, And Be'ez Hashem will get there. At the same time, we should have in mind small, concrete kabbalos and commitments that we make in the beginning of the year. And everybody knows what would be appropriate for them, what they need to work on, what they're able to work on, whether in the area of Limud HaTorah, of course, whether in Tefillah, Bein Adam Lachaveroi, whether Kibbud Avayim, and in the merit of us making small commitments and small kabbalos, we are confident the Rebbeinu Shem will grant us all great siyata d'shmaya. And I want to thank again Rabbi Sulzer for giving me the opportunity, and Rabbi Blumenthal for making the contact and inviting me to join you this evening in South Africa. And I hope to be able to see all of you again soon. Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach. Everyone should be benched with a Gemar Chasima Toiva, good health, and bracha v'hatzlacha. Lanu l'chol Yisrael. Amen. Shkoyach.
Amen. Shkoyach. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Baruch Tiyah. Baruch Tiyah. Baruch Tiyah. Thank you, everyone. Shkoyach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.